Sort of 8:30 to 9:30 is an important time in the online world, and so I'm filling in this job for a while. The challenge is I have to do my other job too, which is deal with a group of about half a dozen reporters, and so it's like not enough time to quite do either of those jobs very well. But, good morning. How are you, Roland? This is kind of a metaphor for the newspaper business. This is what we had yesterday, and this is how much value it has right now. So, good paper this morning, but what have you got for me today? Under this category, we got what's the early front runners for local stories on the front page tomorrow, and we'll bounce around some other ideas too that other people might have for stories that could compete.
This is a written report that the police department released, the police in the city, about the violence in Uptown over Memorial Day. So this morning is a press conference where the mayor and the police chief are going to be talking about what their plans are for the 4th of July, which is when they expect to have more big crowds uptown. I need to be sure that I've got some of the details fresh in my mind so that when we go into the press conference I can ask some pointed questions, hopefully, and get something more than spin out of the mayor. So we're a small enough newsroom. There are just 2 full-time reporters, so we can't cover everything. So sometimes things are big and they have to be covered, or they're important enough to our listeners that we have to cover them. And in those cases, you know, there will be sort of a group decision. Well, who's going to do it? All right, well, you do it. You know, this is a story today where it has to be covered, and you know, my colleague Lisa has other stuff she's working on, so it fell to me to do it. And I covered the last press conference that the mayor held, where he talked about the Uptown disturbances on Memorial Day. So, you know, I have a little bit more of the background knowledge than Lisa does, my colleague, so it just made sense for me to go. I think the hardest part for me is, for most people, is just being aware of the tape that you're collecting as you're doing it at the interviews, making sure that you're getting the right background noise that you need to be getting in order to, so that when you come back to the editing table, you have everything that you need, and you don't realize at the last minute that you forgot something, or that you don't have that one soundbite that you needed, or that you didn't ask that one follow-up question. Sometimes, you know, it's hours away to get to that source again, and so you have to really kind of try to anticipate every possible need that your story might have. Oh, yeah, I know.
All right, 5:30 lead.
I'd really like to have Trent at 4:55, the haunted trail safety.
Okay.
I think it's really teasable. I think it's going to hold people over into the 5.
No, we don't.
You want the Hampton story?
Do you want the blind man in the car?
Is that too light for a quarter hour?
You know, I don't think it is too light, because I think your A block is so heavy.
Yeah, that's true.
You got a deadly fire and you've got a rape, kidnapping, arrest. I feel like she could, and that story's gonna be such a driver. I mean,
It's
just
just
the
gonna be a
story
really
of a
good
guy,
story.
a guy who lost his vision, restored a car, and is now.
Make sure you do something hard in your B block
Yeah.
keys so that it doesn't signal that that's all they have. That's hard news. Josh, you got the thing I sent about the crop pitch for Sarah about Huntersville? The Huntersville follow. That he got a tip from a couple of people that the kid who supposedly killed his parents in Huntersville dismembered them.
Limb by limb.
Limb by limb. The hands and arms were cut off of the mother.
Would be interesting. And my only concern is that there's no if there's no paper trail, like if there are no search warrants, no autopsy.
And that's what I think we need
then
to try to get as a coroner's report or
yeah,
a search
it's going to
warrant.
be hard. So
That they're
Other-
looking for some kind of a.
I was wondering why they haven't released like a cause of death. Like they didn't say
They
shooting.
don't know.
or stabbed.
Devil, I mean, what is the news value in that just besides gore and shock value? I mean, I'm not saying we don't do it. I'm just asking. I'm just saying. I mean,
Huge story, lots and lots
huge
of
story,
interest.
lots of interest. It allows us to show
I
that
think
this
it's
was
going to
video
turn into
there.
one of those. I think it's going to turn into one of those stories where he was off his meds and it becomes a big mental illness. Is he responsible?
Is there,
et cetera.
have we dug into that at all? Is there anything to do on that angle of the story? And that would sort of, you know what I mean, that would give us the plausible deniability to be able to say, we also found out he cut them up.
Well, I like
But-
that part because, I mean, we had the 15-year-old kid
Right.
that killed his parents. I kind of pitched that as an angle for that too. You know,
Yeah.
why do people do things like this? And the whole, he was off his medication
Yeah.
angle.
I think you can find the.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's enough out there
And
with
it
the
was
story that
shot-
we can
right,
do.
I can put something together. Hi, this is Sarah Batista with WBTV. I'm working on a story today about mental health, and I was wondering if you had anyone available that could talk with us about that. If you could give me a call back as soon as possible, my number is 704. Hey, Kevin, it's Sarah Batista with WBTV. How are you? I'm doing good. I had a question for you, and I'm hoping you can help me. We've had 2 situations where somebody murdered their parents in the past 2 weeks, and one we know was on medication and had gotten. I've called people that I've worked with in the past that have come through for me, so I'm hoping they'll be able to come through this time too. And because I haven't covered this story before, I'm going to try to read up on it and see what we have done in the past.
We have the Dream Team story, and this is, again, the story about a college student in Charlotte who's facing deportation, and rather than going through the traditional Latino advocacy, he's turned to basically a bunch of kids. John, you got anything in business?
Rick Rothaker's looking at the current Bank of America problems and that Countrywide. Focusing on Countrywide. Those who've been around a while know that Bank of America, all those years, made all these acquisitions, and for the most part, turned out well without incident. But boy, Countrywide was the one that just has just been an albatross, and so he's looking a little bit deeper into that.
So what's our centerpiece?
I don't think Dream Team has quite the disagreement if you want to. They're nice portraits, but I'm not sure that's a centerpiece.
I wanted to mention, are we going to do anything for like a follow-up on the 4th of crowd control? I can't remember what site I saw something on. Was it ours? About Ron Leeper had organized a lot of African American men and looking for like 500 to go out and patrol the streets. I don't know what we're going to do.
Well, should we do a quick turnaround profile on him? I mean, I'd like to know more about him.
Having a free and independent press is an important part of maintaining democracy and keeping our officials, our elected officials, accountable.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Fox, Mayor of Charlotte, and we today want to make sure that the public knows our plans for the 4th of July.
And I feel like that's an important part of what I do, is to make sure and ask the questions that the public wouldn't get a chance to ask because they don't have access to the elected officials or because they don't have the microphone and the press pass that entitles them to get in the room to ask those questions. Chief Monroe, you had a plan for Memorial Day and Speed Street, and you worked that plan. Some of that was to keep people moving, and we've seen the maps you showed us where the arrests just rotated around where you were moving people. So how is this plan going to be any different in any way that will actually, you think, work better than the plan over Memorial Day?
Well, I think the plan worked pretty good Memorial Day. And,
as I'm interviewing people and as I'm participating in a press conference or listening to a committee meeting and I'm taking notes, I'm listening for 10-second thoughts, for moments when people are speaking authentically, where it doesn't sound like they're reading from notes or they're reeling off bullet points.
See the large numbers of people that's going to come uptown.
Usually the sound bites are there just to add context, add some personality to the story. What they're saying isn't as important as how they're saying it, the tone of voice, because I can usually get the key points across much more quickly. So for example, I don't always want a soundbite where somebody is reeling off a bunch of numbers, because if they're giving you all the percentages and the data, we're not really gaining anything from that. I could probably say it a little bit more succinctly and let them say something more colorful.
Hello? Yes. All right, perfect. We're headed that way, so we should be there in about 30 minutes. Most people understand there's a deadline, but I don't think anybody really, unless you work in television, really understands how quickly I need you. You know, I need you to talk like now, like 10 minutes ago.
Our story today, we're not feeling the severe pressure yet, but we've still got several places we have to be, and it takes time to move around and get your elements together. We've still got another city, another little town to go to after this. See if we can find somebody there.
And it's already 12:30, and we are live at 4, and we haven't gotten anything yet on this story.
We've got file material.
We have some video
story that's happened, days ago.
Right. But so far, we've got nothing new.
So if I'm understanding, Mr. Leeper, your volunteers will have orange T-shirts on Monday night. This is Monday only, right? Not okay. And they will be. Some will be in these tents you've designated, but then there will be a lot of people who are just sort of stationed wherever you and the police have decided, and they're just sort of there to approach young men or to just kind of be there like bouncers, or?
No, we're not planning on being bouncers. I'm not big enough to be a bouncer.
To break up fights?
And we got something big enough back here, but that's not our role. Our first step is just to model how a large group of African Americans can be together and exhibit good behavior.
Thank you. And what was the name of the gentleman who gave the prayer in your circle at the beginning?
That would have been Ted White of Steel Creek Church of Charlotte.
Okay, thank you. Is Men Who Care Global a new organization?
Yes.
And Mr. Leeper is the?
He was the visionary behind it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Leeper, Julie Rose, WFAE Radio.
How are you?
Good, thank you. So this is a new organization. There are other organizations that work with a young black youth in Charlotte. So why do you need this group?
Well, one of the things that we've found, Julie, is that many of our groups are just fragmented. I mean, we don't know what the others are doing.
Actually, I was surprised by the African American men group. I hadn't heard about that in advance. The press release hadn't come to us, so it actually is sort of intriguing.
Hey, Heather, I'm Sarah Batista.
Nice to meet you too.
We were trying to figure out where the best place would be.
We do have a room if you want to take a look at it to see if it'll suit you. Let's take a look. Right here, straight ahead.
Okay. Heather, talk to me a little bit about, what would make someone kill their parents? I know that sounds like a hard question to answer, but there has to be a reason.
Well, I can't speak to a specific reason because the reasons can look very different, but I can say that there are warning signs that may lead up to something like that happening, and it's really important to take note of those warning signs very early on.
Okay. Some people I've heard say, you hear the term, they just snapped. Mm-hmm. What does that mean, really, when someone snaps?
Well, again, it could look very different depending on the youth or adolescent. Everyone's behavior is going to look differently, and you have to put it in a context with their situation, with their family. So, again, it can look very different.
When I was talking on the phone earlier to someone, she mentioned like a psychological break or something like that. Is that a term, or I guess that was like...
Yeah. I wouldn't say that's a term that we use with our families, but we might say something like if a youth suddenly started having a big shift, again, in their mood or in their behavior, something that wasn't normal, quote, normal for them, that would be a pretty big warning sign.
Is there, some people say, well, maybe this person killed their parents because they were angry with their parents, but it's possible it's much bigger than that.
Certainly it could be anything, and I can't speak to the case that happened because I'm not as familiar with it. But in our experience, kids go through many different things, and they can act out for a variety of reasons.
That's it. So, Brad, we'll go over to the Huntersville PD, because and if we don't get anything there, then that's about as good as we're going to get.
I think you're right.
The only other big thing that we could possibly get today is if the daughter was to talk to us that found them, but I doubt she's going to do that.
She's there?
If we can get a police report or something that has her information on it, because she found them. So she was fairly good, but she's limited on what she can really say because she can't talk about these specific cases. So her interview was more general. Hello?
Hey Sarah, it's Mary. Just checking to see where you're at right now and what you have.
We just talked to a mental health provider. So we have that. I'm really hoping that when we go to the PD that there will be a police report or something that will say, give us some new information. But aside from that, after the police department, we'll go back to the neighborhood and see. I would really like to talk with the daughter that found them. And I don't know, and I'm trying to see how I can find her. I'm wondering if her name's on the police report.
I have you in at 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep me posted when you get.
Okay, all right. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.